The moment you stop chasing them, why do they suddenly come back? That single question has confused millions of people. It has ended healing journeys forward. It has restarted painful relationships. It has made strong people question everything they believed about love, rejection, and closure. One day, they disappear forward. They stop calling. They become cold. Every message feels shorter than the last. Every conversation feels distant. Then silence takes over. Days pass. Weeks pass forward. Sometimes even months. Slowly, something changes inside you. You stop waiting for the phone to light up. You stop checking their social media forward. You stop replaying old conversations. You stop hoping that every notification belongs to them. For the first time in a long time, you begin moving forward. Then something unexpected happens. A message appears. It is casual, it is friendly. Sometimes it is emotional. Sometimes it sounds almost romantic. Sometimes they apologize forward. Sometimes they tell you they have been thinking about you. Sometimes they ask a simple question that could easily have remained unanswered. Suddenly, forward, the person who seemed completely uninterested now acts as though losing you matters. Most people immediately reach the same conclusion. They finally realize my value forward. They finally miss me. They finally changed. That explanation feels comforting. Unfortunately, psychology tells a much more complicated story forward. The truth is that many people never learn why this pattern happens. They only experience it. They mistake emotional movement for emotional growth forward. Those two things are not the same. A person can feel intense emotions without becoming emotionally healthier forward. A person can fear losing someone without becoming ready for real intimacy. A person can come back without truly changing. That difference changes everything. Today, forward, we are going to explore one of the least understood parts of avoidant psychology. It is a pattern that relationship experts, attachment researchers, forward, and therapists have discussed for years. Yet many people still interpret it in completely the wrong way. This pattern often appears at the very end forward. Not when you are chasing, not when you are begging, not when you are trying to prove your love. It appears after you stop. That timing is not random forward. It reveals something happening beneath the surface that many people never notice forward. One of the biggest myths about avoidant attachment is that avoidant people simply stop caring forward. That belief sounds logical because their behavior often looks cold and detached. They withdraw. They avoid difficult conversations. They create distance forward. They may even convince themselves that leaving is the correct decision. From the outside, it looks final. From the inside, the emotional story can be very different forward. Many avoidant individuals are not disconnected from emotion. Instead, they are disconnected from emotional safety forward. They often learn very early in life that depending on other people feels risky. Closeness can trigger discomfort instead of comfort forward. Vulnerability can feel like danger instead of security. Because of that, their mind develops protective strategies. Distance becomes safety. Silence becomes control forward. Independence becomes protection. These strategies often work well enough for years, until something unexpected happens, until the other person truly begins letting go forward. That is where the story changes. One lesser-known fact about attachment psychology is that avoidant behavior does not always remove emotional attachment forward. It often suppresses it. Those feelings can remain hidden for a very long time because avoiding emotion feels safer than facing it directly. That means someone can look emotionally calm while experiencing conflict beneath the surface. Many people never realize this. They mistake emotional suppression for emotional freedom. Those two things are completely different. Another surprising detail is that uncertainty affects almost everyone, even people who appear emotionally distant. Human brains naturally pay attention to things that are becoming unavailable. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as the value of perceived scarcity. When something feels permanently available, the mind often stops focusing on it. When access suddenly disappears, attention increases. This principle appears in many parts of human behavior. Relationships are no exception. For an avoidant person, constant pursuit can become something expected. They assume the connection remains there whenever they choose to return. That expectation quietly becomes part of their emotional environment. Then one day, that expectation disappears. The silence feels different. The energy changes. The emotional balance shifts. Many people believe this is the moment love suddenly returns. Sometimes that is true. Very often, it is something else entirely. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is uncertainty. Sometimes it is the uncomfortable realization that control over the emotional distance no longer belongs to them. This is where many people become trapped. The returning message creates hope. Hope creates emotion. Emotion weakens boundaries. Boundaries disappear. Then the old cycle quietly begins it again. Very few people recognize this while it is happening. That is exactly why this topic matters. Understanding the psychology behind these moments can protect you from confusing temporary emotional activation with lasting personal growth. There is another reason this conversation is so important. Not every avoidant person behaves in the same way. Not every return is manipulation. Not every message hides unhealthy motives. Some people truly work on themselves. Some enter therapy. Some learn emotional regulation. Some become capable of building secure relationships. Real change exists, but real change leaves evidence. That evidence appears through consistency. Through accountability, through emotional openness, through actions repeated over time, not through one emotional conversation, not through one apology, not through one late night message. Knowing the difference can save months or even years of emotional pain. Throughout this video, we will break down every stage of this hidden pattern. You will learn why avoidants often become unsettled only after someone emotionally detaches. You will discover why sudden attention can feel so convincing, even when nothing has actually changed. You will understand the psychological difference between a genuine return and a fear-based reaction. Most importantly, you will learn how to protect yourself from becoming trapped inside the same emotional cycle again. The final section may completely change the way you interpret messages from someone who once walked away. It reveals the one sign that separates temporary emotional panic from authentic emotional growth. Most people never notice it until the cycle repeats once again. By the end of this video, you will see these interactions through a completely different lens. Instead of reacting to emotions in the moment, you will understand the deeper psychological patterns driving them. That knowledge gives you something far more valuable than false hope. It gives you clarity. Forward. Welcome to Relationship Reality, where we explore the hidden psychology behind relationships, attachment, and human behavior. Forward. If you enjoy thoughtful videos that help you understand people on a deeper level and protect your emotional well-being, forward. Subscribe to the channel and join us for every new episode. Let us begin. Many people think an avoidant person simply does not care. Forward. That belief sounds reasonable because their actions often look cold. They pull away during emotional conversations. They become quiet after moments of closeness. Forward. They may even end a relationship without much explanation. From the outside, it looks like they feel nothing. The reality is often much more complicated. Forward. Avoidant attachment is not the same as a lack of emotion. It is a pattern of protecting oneself from emotions that feel too intense. Forward. Researchers who study attachment have found that many avoidant individuals learned very early that depending on other people did not always feel safe. Forward. Emotional needs may have been ignored. Vulnerability may have been met with criticism. Independence may have been rewarded more than closeness. Over time, the brain adapts. Forward. Instead of running toward connection during stress, it begins running away from it. This pattern becomes automatic. Forward. Many avoidant people are not making a conscious decision every time they withdraw. Their nervous system often reacts before they even understand what they are feeling. Forward. Distance becomes a form of protection. Silence becomes a way to calm internal discomfort. The behavior looks intentional, but much of it happens beneath conscious awareness. Forward. That is one reason avoidant relationships can feel so confusing. One day they seem interested. The next day they seem emotionally unavailable. One conversation feels warm. Forward. The next feels distant. To the other person, this change feels sudden. To the avoidant mind, it often feels necessary. Forward. There is another misunderstanding that creates even more confusion. Not every avoidant behaves in the same way. Forward. Attachment styles exist on a spectrum. Some people show only a few avoidant traits. Others show many. Some become distant only during major conflict. Forward. Others struggle with emotional closeness almost all the time. Personality, life experience, emotional maturity, and self-awareness all influence how these patterns appear. Forward. This is why it is dangerous to place every person into the same category. Some avoidant individuals actively work on themselves. They learn healthier communication. Forward. They recognize their patterns. They seek therapy or spend years building emotional awareness. Others continue repeating the same cycle because it feels familiar. Forward. The pattern may look similar, but the motivation underneath can be very different. Forward. One of the most important ideas in avoidant psychology is something therapists often call deactivation. Forward. This is a mental process that reduces emotional closeness when intimacy begins to feel overwhelming. Instead of moving closer, the avoidant mind begins creating distance. Forward. This can happen in many subtle ways. Small flaws suddenly appear much larger. Minor disagreements feel like proof that the relationship is wrong. Forward. Normal emotional needs begin to feel demanding. Personal space starts feeling more valuable than emotional connection. Forward. Sometimes the avoidant person becomes unusually busy. Sometimes communication slowly fades. Sometimes they convince themselves they simply chose the wrong partner. Forward. Very often, they genuinely believe these thoughts in the moment. That is what makes deactivation so powerful. It does not always feel like avoidance. Forward. It feels like certainty. A lesser known fact is that this process can temporarily reduce emotional awareness. Forward. Some studies suggest that avoidant individuals often suppress attachment-related thoughts instead of fully processing them. They are not always pretending to feel less. Forward. In many cases, they truly experience less emotional awareness during periods of withdrawal because their mind is protecting them from emotional overload. Forward. That protection comes with a cost. Feelings that are pushed aside rarely disappear forever. They often remain beneath the surface. As long as emotional distance continues, forward, those feelings stay quiet. Then something unexpected happens. The other person finally stops chasing. This is the moment that changes everything. Forward. For weeks or months, the avoidant person may have expected messages to continue. They expected another attempt to reconnect. They expected another conversation. Forward. Even if they ignored those efforts, the connection still felt available. Availability creates a hidden sense of emotional security. The relationship may not be active. Forward. But it still exists as an option. Then the messages stop. The calls stop. The attention disappears. Forward. The emotional energy that always surrounded them suddenly becomes silent. At first, this silence may seem like relief. There is less pressure, less expectation. Forward. More space. But as time passes, something else begins to happen. The certainty that the relationship will always remain available starts fading. Forward. That quiet confidence begins turning into uncertainty. Human psychology responds strongly to uncertainty. Forward. Many people assume avoidant individuals are completely unaffected by loss. Research on attachment suggests something very different. Forward. Avoidant people often experience distress in delayed ways. Instead of reacting immediately after separation, their emotional response may appear much later. Forward. They suppress first. They process later. By the time those feelings become noticeable, the other person may already be healing. Forward. This delayed reaction surprises both people. The partner thinks, why now? Forward. The avoidant person may also wonder why these emotions suddenly appeared after weeks of feeling calm. The answer often lies in emotional availability. Forward. While the relationship remained emotionally accessible, there was little urgency to confront hidden feelings. Once that access disappears, the emotional landscape changes. Forward. The brain begins recognizing that the loss could become permanent. That realization can activate emotions that remained buried during the earlier stages of separation. Forward. This does not automatically mean lasting change has happened. It does not automatically mean the avoidant person is suddenly ready for intimacy. Forward. It simply means the emotional system has entered a very different stage. Forward. And that stage often produces behaviors that seem deeply confusing to the person who has finally started moving on. Forward. There is one detail that many people never notice until the relationship is already falling apart. Forward. An avoidant person often feels the safest when they believe the relationship is still available, even if they are not actively investing in it. That sounds contradictory. Forward. They may keep their distance, they may respond slowly, they may avoid serious conversations, They may even disappear for days or weeks. Forward. Yet, somewhere beneath those actions is a quiet assumption. The other person is still there. That belief creates an invisible emotional cushion. Forward. As long as they believe the connection has not truly disappeared, there is no urgent reason to face uncomfortable emotions. Forward. The relationship becomes something they can approach later when they feel ready. Whether that day ever comes is another question. Forward. The important part is that the option still exists. This is why constant pursuit often creates an unexpected effect. Most people chase because they care. Forward. They send another message because they want clarity. They call because they hope the silence will finally end. Forward. They explain their feelings again because they believe honesty will fix the problem. These actions come from love. But to an avoidant nervous system, forward, they can quietly reinforce a sense of emotional security. Every unanswered message still says one thing. They are still here. Forward. Every attempt to reconnect sends another signal. I still have access to this relationship. Ironically, the more available someone becomes, forward, the less urgency an avoidant person may feel to reconnect. This does not happen because they enjoy hurting others. In many cases, forward, they are simply following a pattern that has protected them for years. Forward. One lesser-known finding from attachment research is that people with avoidant tendencies often place a high value on emotional independence. Forward. When another person continues making the effort, the avoidant partner does not need to confront the possibility of permanent loss. Forward. Their emotional system remains relatively calm because the connection still feels available in the background. Then something changes. The messages stop. Forward. The checking in stops. The emotional energy disappears. At first, an avoidant person may barely react. Some even feel relieved. There is less pressure, less expectation. Forward. Less emotional intensity. Everything seems quieter. This early calm often confuses the other person. Forward. They think they really never cared. That conclusion may feel obvious. Yet human psychology rarely follows a straight line. As days turn into weeks, forward, something subtle begins happening beneath the surface. The relationship no longer feels guaranteed. The familiar emotional safety net begins disappearing. Forward. For the first time, the avoidant person cannot predict whether the other person will still be there tomorrow. That uncertainty matters far more than many people realize. Forward. The human brain naturally pays attention to change. It notices when familiar patterns suddenly disappear. Forward. An avoidant individual may not immediately recognize this shift as fear. Instead, they may simply notice a strange feeling. Something feels different. Forward. Something feels unsettled. The silence no longer feels peaceful. It starts feeling unfamiliar. That unfamiliar feeling slowly grows. Forward. Psychologists have long known that uncertainty can create powerful emotional reactions. Interestingly, forward, avoidant individuals often spend so much time managing emotional distance that they become less prepared for moments when they lose control over that distance. Forward. Choosing space feels very different from having space forced upon them. That difference changes everything. When they decided to step back, they remained in control. Forward. When the other person genuinely lets go, that control disappears. Control has quietly changed hands. Forward. Many people overlook this psychological shift because nothing dramatic happens on the surface. There is no argument, no emotional goodbye, no final confrontation. Forward. There is only silence, yet silence can become louder than words. Every passing day sends a new message. They might truly be moving on. They might not come back. Forward. I might not have another chance. Forward. These thoughts are often uncomfortable because they challenge the avoidant person's expectation that the relationship will remain available whenever they choose to return. Forward. This expectation is rarely spoken out loud. Sometimes the avoidant person is not even aware they hold it. It simply exists beneath conscious thought. Forward. Then reality interrupts it. Forward. Another surprising fact is that people often believe avoidant individuals fear closeness more than anything else. The truth is more complex. Forward. Many also fear irreversible loss. They simply experience that fear differently. Instead of expressing panic immediately, forward, they may suppress it until the situation feels permanent. That delayed emotional response explains why their behavior can seem so confusing. Weeks earlier, forward, they seemed completely detached. Now they begin wondering about the other person. They remember old conversations. Small memories return without warning. Places, songs, forward, or ordinary routines suddenly trigger thoughts they had successfully pushed aside. The emotional wall that once felt solid develops small cracks. Forward. This does not mean every avoidant person suddenly becomes deeply emotional. It means the mind is beginning to process information it previously avoided. For some, forward, curiosity appears first. For others, regret. For others, anxiety. The feeling depends on the individual. But one thing often connects these experiences. Forward. The certainty that once protected them is gone. Your silence becomes something they cannot easily explain. Silence leaves room for unanswered questions. Forward. Questions create uncertainty. Uncertainty activates attention. Attention can awaken emotions that remain buried during the earlier stages of separation. Forward. This is why genuine emotional detachment carries so much power. It is different from pretending to move on. It is different from using silence as a strategy. Forward. People often sense the difference through subtle changes in behavior. When someone truly detaches, they stop seeking validation. They stop trying to provoke reactions. Forward. They stop revolving their life around the relationship. That emotional shift can be felt even without words. For an avoidant person, forward, this new reality can activate fears they rarely acknowledge, even to themselves. Not only the fear of losing another person, forward, but the fear of discovering that they waited too long to understand what that person truly meant to them. And once those hidden fears begin rising to the surface, forward, they often lead to a behavior that catches almost everyone completely off guard. This is the stage that confuses almost everyone. After weeks of silence, something changes. Forward. A message appears. It does not look dramatic. Sometimes it is only a single sentence. I was thinking about you. Forward. I hope you are doing well. I found something that reminded me of you. Other times the message feels surprisingly emotional. They apologize. Forward. They admit they made mistakes. They say they miss talking to you. They sound warmer than they did before they disappeared. Forward. For someone who spent weeks trying to understand the silence, this sudden shift feels like the answer they were waiting for. Forward. But this is also the moment when clear thinking becomes the most difficult. Many people call this the final dirty trick. That phrase sounds harsh, forward, and sometimes it truly fits. There are people who knowingly use another person's emotions to regain control. They understand exactly what they are doing, forward. But psychology suggests that many avoidant people are not following a carefully planned strategy. Instead, they are reacting to a change inside themselves, forward. Their emotional balance has been disturbed. For a long time, they believed the relationship remained available. Now that belief is disappearing, forward. Their mind begins searching for a way to reduce the discomfort. Reaching out becomes one possible solution. This is why the behavior often feels confusing, forward. The avoidant person may genuinely miss you in that moment. They may genuinely feel regret. They may genuinely want to reconnect. Real emotions can exist, forward. The problem is that real emotions do not always lead to lasting change. This difference is one of the biggest mistakes people overlook, forward. Feeling something is not the same as becoming someone different. A moment of fear can create powerful emotions. Those emotions may disappear once the fear fades, forward. That is why timing matters so much. Notice when the attention returns. Very often it appears only after they sense they are losing access to you, forward. Not while you were sending long messages. Not while you were asking for another chance. Not while you were waiting every day for a reply, forward. It appears after your energy changes. That timing is rarely an accident. One of the most common behaviors is the unexpected message. There is no clear reason for it, forward. No urgent topic. No practical need. The conversation begins with something simple. A holiday greeting. A question about an old memory. A random observation, forward. The message feels small. Its emotional impact is enormous. Another common pattern is nostalgia. So suddenly they remember the best parts of the relationship, forward. They bring up your favorite restaurant. They mention a vacation. They laugh about an old joke. This selective memory is fascinating. During deactivation, forward. Many avoidant individuals focus heavily on problems. During separation, anxiety, positive memories often become easier to access. The emotional spotlight quietly moves, forward. That shift can make the relationship seem more valuable than it did only weeks earlier. Then comes sudden vulnerability, forward. A person who avoided emotional conversations now shares feelings. They admit loneliness. They admit confusion. They admit they have been thinking about you, forward. These moments feel deeply meaningful. Sometimes they truly are. Sometimes they reflect temporary emotional activation rather than lasting emotional development, forward. Another pattern appears through mixed signals. One day they seem deeply interested. The next day they become distant again. One conversation feels hopeful, forward. The next feels cold. This inconsistency creates enormous confusion because every warm moment seems to erase the memory of earlier distance, forward. Human brains naturally pay more attention to changing rewards than predictable ones. This is one reason inconsistent affection can become so emotionally powerful, forward. You begin focusing on the good moments. You begin waiting for the next one. Without realizing it, your attention becomes attached to uncertainty itself, forward. Then there is increased attention. After months of emotional distance, they suddenly respond quickly. They ask questions. They compliment you, forward. They show curiosity about your life. They seem present in ways they never were before. This sudden interest often feels like proof that they finally understand your value, Forward. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they simply recognize that they may no longer have unlimited access to you. That possibility changes their emotional experience. Forward. One lesser-known aspect of attachment psychology is that perceived loss can temporarily increase attachment-related thoughts, even in people who usually suppress them. Forward. As the possibility of permanent separation becomes more real, thoughts that were pushed aside begin returning with greater intensity. Forward. This explains why the emotional energy often appears so suddenly. It is not always love arriving late. Sometimes it is loss finally becoming real. Forward. This is also why many avoidant individuals seem sincere when they return. They often are sincere. Forward. Their feelings at that moment can be completely genuine. The mistake is assuming sincere emotion automatically predicts future behavior. Those are two different things. Forward. Emotional panic can produce honesty. It can produce tears. It can produce apologies. It can even produce promises. But panic usually wants immediate relief. Forward. Growth wants lasting change. Panic asks, how do I stop this painful feeling? Growth asks, how do I become a healthier partner? Forward. Those questions lead to very different outcomes. A person driven mainly by emotional panic often relaxes once reassurance returns. The fear decreases. Forward. The urgency disappears. Old habits quietly return. Communication becomes inconsistent again. Distance slowly increases. The familiar cycle begins repeating itself. Forward. A person who has truly grown behaves differently. Their actions remain steady after the emotional intensity fades. They continue difficult conversations. Forward. They accept responsibility without becoming defensive. They stay emotionally present even when closeness feels uncomfortable. Forward. They work through discomfort instead of escaping it. That kind of change rarely happens overnight. It is built through repeated choices over time. From the outside, forward, both people may return with warm words and emotional messages. In the beginning, they can look almost identical. Forward. The real difference only becomes visible after the excitement settles and ordinary life begins again. The hardest part of this pattern is not recognizing when it begins. Forward. The hardest part is understanding why it feels so real. When an avoidant person suddenly becomes warm again, your mind immediately searches for meaning. Forward. They finally understand. They finally realized they were wrong. This time feels different. Forward. Those thoughts appear naturally because the human brain is designed to notice positive change. After weeks of pain and uncertainty, forward, even a small sign of affection can feel enormous. One kind message suddenly outweighs 20 days of silence. Forward. One heartfelt conversation seems to erase months of confusion. This reaction is not a sign of weakness. It is part of human psychology. Forward. One of the most powerful forces behind this experience is something psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. The name sounds technical. The idea is simple. Forward. When a reward appears at random instead of arriving consistently, people often become more emotionally attached to it. This pattern has been studied for decades. Forward. It appears in many areas of human behavior. It affects decision-making, motivation, and emotional attachment. Relationships are no exception. Forward. Think about two different situations. In the first, someone treats you with kindness every day. You know what to expect. The relationship feels stable. In the second, forward, Someone is loving one week, distant the next, then suddenly affectionate again. Nothing feels predictable. Surprisingly, the second pattern often creates stronger emotional obsession. The uncertainty keeps the brain searching for answers. It keeps asking the same question. Forward. When will the good version of them come back? That question quietly becomes the center of your emotional world. Forward. Another lesser-known fact is that uncertainty can increase activity in the brain's reward system. Forward. Researchers have found that unpredictable rewards often hold attention more strongly than guaranteed ones. Instead of relaxing, the brain stays alert. Forward. It keeps looking for clues that another positive moment is about to arrive. This is one reason mixed signals feel so powerful. The warmth does not need to last very long. Forward. It only needs to return often enough to restore hope. Hope is one of the strongest emotional forces in any relationship. The moment the avoidant person reaches out again, forward, hope comes rushing back. The painful silence suddenly feels easier to explain. You begin connecting small pieces together. They remembered my birthday. Forward. They replied quickly. They sounded emotional. They asked about my family. Each small action starts looking like evidence of permanent change. Forward. Your mind naturally builds a hopeful story around those moments. Unfortunately, hope and evidence are not the same thing. This is where many people become trapped. Forward. Renewed attention feels like proof, but attention alone proves very little. Someone can miss your presence without becoming ready for commitment. Forward. Someone can fear losing you without learning healthier communication. Forward. Someone can genuinely love you and still repeat unhealthy patterns if they have not addressed the deeper issues driving those behaviors. Forward. That difference is easy to miss because emotions are louder than patterns. Strong feelings demand attention. Forward. Consistent behavior requires patience to observe. The emotional high created by renewed connection often hides the larger picture. Forward. The relationship suddenly feels alive again. Conversations become exciting. The future begins looking possible. Even painful memories start fading into the background. Forward. Psychologists sometimes describe this as emotional relief. Relief is powerful because it follows suffering. After carrying uncertainty for weeks, forward. Even a small reduction in emotional pain feels enormous. Relief quickly turns into optimism. Optimism creates new expectations. Forward. You begin believing things will finally be different. You become more available again. You lower the boundaries that protected your healing. Forward. You invest your emotions once more. Then something familiar begins happening. Communication slows down. Replies become shorter. Plans become uncertain. Forward. Emotional distance quietly returns. Confusion follows. Disappointment replaces excitement. You begin asking yourself the same questions again. Forward. Did I say something wrong? Did I move too fast? Did they lose interest again? Instead of recognizing the repeating pattern, many people blame themselves. Forward. Self-doubt grows. They work even harder to fix the relationship. They become more patient, more understanding, more forgiving. Forward. They hope that one more conversation will finally solve everything. Then the avoidant person offers another small moment of warmth. The cycle begins again. Relief. Forward. Optimism. Disappointment. Renewed chasing. Over time, this pattern creates something much deeper than temporary sadness. It creates emotional dependency. Forward. Emotional dependency does not always begin with constant affection. Ironically, it often grows through inconsistency. Forward. Your emotional state slowly becomes connected to another person's unpredictable behavior. A single message can brighten your entire day. Forward. A delayed reply can ruin your evening. Your peace depends on their attention. Without realizing it, your emotional balance has been handed to someone else. Forward. This is why these relationships can become so difficult to leave. People often believe they stay because of love alone. Love may certainly be present. Forward. But psychology suggests another force may also be operating. The brain begins chasing emotional relief instead of emotional security. Those two experiences feel similar. Forward. They are completely different. Forward. Emotional security feels calm. It feels steady. It does not require constant guessing. Emotional relief feels intense because it follows anxiety. The greater the anxiety, forward, the greater the relief appears when affection returns. That intensity can easily be mistaken for deep love. Forward. One surprising detail is that many people remember the emotional peaks of a relationship more vividly than the long stretches of uncertainty between them. Forward. The brain naturally gives greater importance to emotionally charged moments. This can make a relationship seem happier in memory than it actually was during everyday life. Forward. That distorted memory keeps hope alive. You remember the passionate reunion. You remember the heartfelt apology. You remember the promises. Forward. The months of distance slowly lose their emotional weight. Forward. This is why so many intelligent and emotionally aware people find themselves returning to the same relationship more than once. They are not failing to see reality. Forward. They are seeing only the brightest parts of it. The deeper question is not whether someone comes back. Forward. The deeper question is whether the return reflects a temporary emotional reaction or a lasting transformation that continues long after the emotions settle. Forward. That distinction becomes far clearer when you stop listening only to words and begin paying close attention to something much harder to fake. Forward. This is the point where many people make the mistake that keeps the cycle alive. They focus on feelings. They focus on emotional words. Forward. They focus on the intensity of the reunion. But intensity is not the same as transformation. Forward. A person can feel terrified of losing you and still remain emotionally unavailable. A person can cry and still repeat the same pattern. Forward. A person can sincerely miss you and still be unprepared for a healthy relationship. That is why one question matters more than almost anything else. Did they truly change? Forward. Or are they simply, I'm reacting to the fear of losing access to you? Those two situations can look almost identical in the beginning. That is what makes them so dangerous. Forward. Fear can sound exactly like love. Fear can look exactly like commitment. Fear can create powerful emotions. But fear usually wants relief. Growth wants responsibility. Forward. Real emotional growth is rarely dramatic. It is often surprisingly ordinary. Forward. People expect transformation to arrive with grand speeches and emotional confessions. In reality, genuine change usually appears through consistent behavior. Forward. That consistency is the first sign to watch. Not 1 week, not one emotional conversation, not a few days of perfect attention, consistency over time. Forward. Someone who has truly grown continues communicating even after the excitement fades. They still respond, they still engage, they still show up. Forward. not because they feel emotionally high every day, but because healthy relationships require steady effort forward. This matters because many avoidant individuals communicate well during moments of emotional urgency. When fear is high, motivation is high. Once the fear decreases forward, old habits often return. Consistency is what separates temporary motivation from lasting change. Another sign is accountability. This is much rarer than people realize. Forward. Real accountability does not sound like this. I am sorry you felt hurt. I was confused. I just needed space. Those statements may contain truth forward, but they often avoid responsibility. Accountability sounds different. I hurt you. I withdrew instead of communicating. I understand how my actions affected you forward. I need to work on the patterns that created this. Notice the difference. Accountability does not defend. It does not redirect. It does not blame circumstances forward. It accepts ownership forward. Psychologists often describe accountability as one of the strongest indicators of emotional maturity because it requires a person to tolerate discomfort without escaping it forward. That is especially important in avoidant patterns. Avoidance often exists to escape emotional discomfort. Accountability requires facing it directly forward. Then there is another sign that many people overlook, a willingness to discuss difficult emotions. Not once, repeatedly. Healthy intimacy requires emotional conversations forward. There is no way around that. Every relationship eventually encounters fear, disappointment, conflict, insecurity, or vulnerability forward. Someone who has genuinely grown does not run every time those emotions appear. They stay present, they listen, they communicate forward. They remain engaged even when the conversation feels uncomfortable. That does not mean they suddenly become perfect. Growth is rarely perfect forward. But they keep moving toward the discomfort instead of running from it. That movement matters forward. One lesser known fact about long-term behavioral change is that insight alone usually is not enough. Many people understand their unhealthy patterns forward. Understanding does not automatically create new habits. Repeated action creates new habits. This is why behavioral consistency matters so much forward. Behavior reveals what emotions often hide. Words can change in minutes. Behavior reveals itself over months. Now compare that with a fear response forward. Fear-driven reconnection often begins with intense emotion. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels powerful. They suddenly miss you deeply forward. They suddenly want to talk all the time. They suddenly express feelings they never shared before. The intensity can be overwhelming forward. Many people mistake this intensity for proof of love, but intensity often says more about anxiety than commitment. Fear wants immediate relief forward. Relief requires reassurance. Once reassurance returns, the urgency often begins fading. This is where emotional inconsistency appears again forward. One day they seem fully invested. The next day they seem distant. One week they talk about the future. The next week they pull away forward. The pattern feels familiar because it is familiar. Nothing fundamental changed beneath the surface. Another warning sign is avoiding deeper conversations forward. They may discuss missing you. They may discuss feelings. They may discuss loneliness. But when the conversation turns toward long-term change, accountability, boundaries forward, or difficult emotional work, discomfort quickly appears. The topic changes. The conversation ends, the vulnerability disappears. Forward. This often happens because discussing feelings is easier than changing behavior. Talking creates emotional connection. Championship requires emotional effort over time. Forward. Those are very different things. Then comes the final clue. Disappearing after reassurance is restored. This is one of the clearest signs of a fear response. Forward. Once they know you still care, the anxiety decreases. The emotional pressure fades. The urgency that drove the reconnection slowly disappears. The old distance returns. Forward. This pattern can repeat many times because reassurance temporarily calms the fear without addressing the deeper issues underneath it. Forward. That is why actions over time tell the truth, not emotional speeches, not promises, not tears, not even sincere feelings. Time removes urgency. Time removes panic. Forward. Time removes fear. Forward. What remains after those emotions fade is usually the clearest picture of who someone truly is, and whether their return came from growth or from the uncomfortable realization that losing you had finally become real. Forward. Breaking this cycle does not begin with changing the avoidant person. It begins with changing the way you respond. That may sound disappointing. Forward. Many people search for the perfect message, the perfect explanation, the perfect amount of patience. Forward. They believe one final conversation will unlock the relationship they always wanted. Very often, the answer lies somewhere else. It lies in emotional boundaries. Forward. Many people misunderstand what a boundary really is. A boundary is not punishment. It is not revenge. It is not silence used as a weapon. Forward. A healthy boundary is a decision about what you will accept and what you will no longer accept. It protects your emotional well-being. It protects your peace. Forward. It protects your future. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing emotional reactions with emotional strength. Reacting feels powerful in the moment. Forward. Sending a long message, demanding answers, arguing, begging for clarity, trying one more time to make someone understand. These reactions often come from pain. Forward. Not strength. Boundaries work differently. They do not chase. They do not convince. They observe. They wait. They allow another person's behavior to reveal the truth. Forward. That truth is usually much clearer than any explanation. Another important step is learning to evaluate behavior instead of promises. Promises feel good. They create hope. Forward. They create relief. They make painful memories seem smaller. But promises require very little effort. Behavior requires daily choices. Forward. Someone can promise better communication. The real question is whether they actually communicate better. Someone can promise honesty. Forward. The real question is whether they remain honest during difficult conversations. Someone can promise commitment. Forward. The real question is whether they continue showing up after the excitement fades. Forward. One lesser-known finding from relationship research is that trust grows much more from predictable behavior than from emotional intensity. Forward. The brain slowly relaxes when another person's actions become reliable over time. Safety is built through repetition, not through dramatic moments. Forward. That is why rebuilding trust should never happen quickly. Forward. Trust is not a gift. It is evidence collected over time. Many people rush this process because they want the pain to end. That desire is completely understandable. Forward. But healing cannot be rushed by hope alone. Watch what happens after ordinary life returns. Watch what happens after the emotional reunion loses its excitement. Watch how they respond during disagreement. Watch how they respond when they feel stressed. Watch how they respond when closeness becomes uncomfortable again. Those ordinary moments reveal far more than emotional speeches. Consistency is often quiet. It does not demand attention. It simply continues forward. This is why patience becomes one of your greatest protections. A person who has genuinely changed will still be changing months later. Forward. They will not become offended because you need time. They will understand why trust must be rebuilt slowly. Forward. Someone who becomes impatient because you are protecting yourself may still be focused on their own emotional comfort rather than your emotional safety. Forward. There is another protection that many people overlook: your sense of self-worth. Relationships become dangerous when your value depends on another person's attention. Forward. If their message determines your happiness, your emotional balance is no longer your own. If their silence determines your confidence, forward, you have handed them far more power than they should ever hold. Healthy love grows between two whole people. Forward. It does not require one person to abandon themselves in order to keep the other close. Self-worth. Self changes the entire relationship dynamic. When you value yourself, forward, you stop interpreting every message as proof of your worth. You stop measuring your value by someone else's availability. Forward. You stop accepting treatment that repeatedly damages your peace. This does not make you cold. It makes you emotionally grounded. Forward. One surprising detail from attachment psychology is that people with stronger self-worth often become less vulnerable to unhealthy relationship cycles because they are better able to separate another person's behavior from their own identity. Forward. That distinction is life-changing. Someone pulling away does not automatically mean you are unlovable. Someone becoming distant does not automatically mean you failed. Forward. Someone returning does not automatically mean you should reopen every door that was once closed. Forward. Your value remains the same regardless of another person's emotional readiness. Healing also requires learning a new habit. Instead of reacting to every emotional moment, forward, begin recognizing patterns. Past tells stories. One isolated event tells very little. A pattern tells almost everything. One apology is a moment. Forward. Repeated accountability is a pattern. One thoughtful message is a moment. Months of healthy communication become a pattern. One emotional conversation is a moment. Forward. Consistent emotional openness becomes a pattern. This shift changes the questions you ask yourself. Instead of asking, how do I feel right now? You begin asking, forward, what pattern has this person shown me over time? That question protects you from temporary emotional relief. Relief feels wonderful. It can also be misleading. Forward. Many people mistake relief for resolution. Those experiences are very different. Relief removes pain for a short time. Forward. Resolution changes the conditions that created the pain in the first place. Real healing does not happen because someone returns. Forward. Real healing happens because you become able to recognize the difference between temporary emotion and lasting change. When that ability develops, forward, something remarkable begins happening. The cycle loses its power. Confusion begins fading. Hope becomes balanced with wisdom. your decisions become calmer. Forward. You stop chasing certainty through another person's words. Instead, you quietly watch their actions, their consistency, forward, and their willingness to do the difficult work that healthy relationships always require. That is the moment when the relationship no longer controls your emotional world, forward, because you finally understand that the strongest protection was never finding the perfect response to another person's behavior, forward. It was learning to recognize your own value clearly enough that unhealthy patterns no longer looked like love. Here is the concluding section of the script. Forward. The biggest lesson from this story is not about the avoidant person. It is about you. The moment you stop chasing often reveals the truth that constant effort was hiding. Forward. As long as one person keeps carrying the relationship forward, it becomes very difficult to see whether the other person is truly moving forward or simply responding when they feel the connection slipping away. Forward. That is why an avoidance return should never be treated as the final answer. Forward. A message is not proof of change. An apology is not proof of growth. Strong emotions are not proof of commitment. Real change is quiet. Real change is consistent. Forward. Real change continues long after the excitement of reconnecting disappears. If someone truly wants a healthy relationship, they will show it through steady communication. Forward. They will accept responsibility for their actions. They will stay present during difficult conversations. They will choose honesty over avoidance again and again. Forward. Those actions matter far more than beautiful words. Remember this whenever someone suddenly reappears after a long silence. Do not ask only whether they came back. Forward. Ask why they came back. Then watch what happens after they return. Time will always reveal what emotions try to hide. Forward. The strongest relationships are not built on uncertainty, mixed signals, or emotional highs followed by painful silence. They are built on trust, safety, respect, forward, and consistency. You deserve a relationship where you never have to earn basic care. You deserve peace that does not disappear every time someone changes their mind. Forward. And sometimes the greatest victory is not convincing someone to stay. It is becoming strong enough to walk away from patterns that no longer serve your life. Forward. The greatest test is rarely whether they come back. The greatest test is whether you have grown enough to recognize what truly deserves your attention. Forward. If this video gave you a new way to understand avoidant psychology and relationships, please leave a like. Forward. It helps this video reach more people who may be trapped in the same painful cycle. If you enjoy thoughtful discussions about human behavior, attachment, forward, and emotional growth, subscribe to the channel and join us for the next video. Until then, protect your peace. Trust consistent actions more than powerful emotions. Forward. And never forget that the healthiest love is the one that never asks you to lose yourself in order to keep it.